Robert Frost was born in 1874 in the United States. He became one of the most famous poets in America and the world. He wrote many poems about nature, life, and people. His poems were simple but deep, and they made people think about their own lives. Frost's writing style was clear and easy to understand, which made him popular with people of all ages. Robert Frost grew up in a small town called San Francisco, but when he was just 11 years old, his father died. His family moved to the East Coast, where they lived in a town called Lawrence, Massachusetts. As a child, Frost loved reading books. He was very interested in poetry and writing. He wrote his first poem when he was just a young boy. Later, he went to a high school in Lawrence, where he became even more interested in poetry. After high school, Frost went to college at Dartmouth College and later attended Harvard University. However, he did not finish his studies at either school. He was more focused on writing and living life. He worked many jobs, including being a teacher and a farmer. In fact, farming became very important to Frost's life and his poetry. He moved to a farm in New Hampshire, where he worked hard and lived with his family. The farm gave him a lot of inspiration for his poems about nature. Frost started writing poems seriously after he left college. In 1913, his first book of poems, A Boy's Will, was published. At first, people did not know much about him, but soon, his poems became popular. His next book, North of Boston, was published in 1914. This book made Frost famous. People admired the way he wrote about life in the country. His poems were filled with beautiful descriptions of nature and his thoughts about life. One of Frost's most famous poems is The Road Not Taken. This poem talks about a man who has to make a decision about which road to take in life. The poem uses the idea of two paths in the woods to show how people sometimes have to choose between different paths in life. The man in the poem chooses the road less traveled, and in the end, this decision makes all the difference in his life. The poem is very well known because it talks about making choices and how our decisions can change our future. Another popular poem by Frost is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. This poem describes a man who stops his horse in the woods during a snowy night. The poem has a peaceful and calm feeling, but it also makes people think about life and death. The man in the poem seems to be thinking about his life and the things he still needs to do before he can rest. Throughout his life, Robert Frost won many awards for his poetry. He won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry 4 times, which is a very special honor for a poet. People loved Frost's poems because they were not only beautiful but also full of meaning. He could take simple things like trees, snow, or roads, and turn them into something that made people think about their own lives. Frost's poems are often about nature, but they also talk about important parts of life, such as work, love, and death. His poems are easy to read, but they have deep meanings that make readers stop and think. His writing shows that poetry does not have to be difficult to understand to be important. He wanted to show people that poetry could be part of everyday life. Frost believed that poetry should be simple and clear, not complicated. He also thought that poems should be about real experiences and things that people could understand. Robert Frost also liked to give talks and read his poems at different events. He became very well known in America and in other countries, too. He traveled to England and met other famous poets, including Ezra Pound. In 1961, Frost was invited to read a poem at the inauguration of President John F. Kennedy. This was a very special moment in his life, and it showed how much people respected his work. Even though Frost was very successful, he had many challenges in his life. He lost many people close to him, including his wife and children. These losses made him sad, but they also gave him more ideas for his poems. Many of his poems are about the sadness and challenges that come with life. Despite the hard times, Frost continued to write and share his poems with the world. Robert Frost died in 1963, but his poems live on. His work continues to inspire many people today. Frost's ability to write about simple things and make them meaningful is one reason why he is still remembered as one of the greatest poets of the 20th century. His poems are still studied in schools, and they are read by people of all ages. He is a great example of how poetry can make us think about life in a deeper way, even through simple words and images. Frost's poems are often read in classrooms around the world. His poems are easy for young readers to understand, but they also offer deep ideas that can be explored as readers grow older. The beauty of his poetry is that it is timeless. The themes of nature, choice, and the human experience are just as important today as they were when Frost first wrote them. Robert Frost's legacy as a poet continues to live on. He will always be remembered for his simple yet profound words, his love of nature, and his ability to help people see the world in a different way. His poems continue to touch the hearts of people around the world, and his place in the history of American poetry will never be forgotten. Through his words, Robert Frost has taught us all that poetry can bring us closer to understanding the world and ourselves.